Who in your life have you met that you think, man, everyone they know loves them? How in the world do they do it? They just seem to be the best friends with everybody. Well, that's somebody who has spent some time considering what it is that makes other people feel better after meeting with them. When I'm in a mode of service, I am much happier. I'm much more fulfilled. I'm enthusiastic. I'm seeing value in what's going on, and people are then appreciative. Hey everybody, Jeff here. Before we get started, if you're getting value from the podcast, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For those of you listening on podcast apps, don't forget to rate and review. Your support really helps the show reach more people, and for that, I am truly grateful. Now let's dive in. Welcome to The Point with Jeff Spikes. Hello and welcome to The Point. It's a fabulous day, it's a fabulous week, and it's a wonderful month. It's an even more amazing year that we get to consider. And here we sit in the middle of the year. Now, if you corporately or business-wise have a different fiscal year, you understand the impact of either scenario, and you have a little bit more flexibility to how you think about the year end and everything else. But here we go. At year end, we really get to, at mid-year, we really get to take a minute and benefit. You can benefit from taking a minute to consider all the goals you've had throughout the year and everything that you've accomplished so far. What are you ahead of? What are you over exceeding in? What are you not quite there with yet? When you look at the amount of transformation and change that's happened in both of these organizations, as far as a shift in infrastructure, a shift in ability, a shift in capacity that prepares them for the growth and these additional engagements, to add the 5, to add the 3.5 that are left, right? Now, why adjust the 1.5, the 2, to the 1 to 1.5 or 2? Well, the reason it wasn't a full 1 really was because they didn't see the added client at the right profitability. They were bringing in a client that wasn't quite at a place where they could afford all of the full-on list of services they had. So they brought them in on a hyphenated program that got them started where they needed to be. Well, meeting a client where they're at to help them get where they're going and to put some of your time and energy into and showing confidence for your own program, for your own ability, is a really positive thing. It only works, though. It really works if you're considering what impact you're having with the client. When you're looking at how you're influencing someone else in your life, a client, if it's your company and what service you're providing and delivering, or what product you're providing or delivering, if it's a family and you're considering how you're approaching your family and what impact they're gaining, if you consider how you're being received, you're ahead of the game. And if in your mind you say, why should I worry about that? All I can manage and control is me. That's right. All we can control is our thoughts, what choices we make. So some people might say, well, all I can control is my actions. What you really control of yourself is the choices you make and the actual behaviors you then portray. But you can also get more detailed and say it's the words you're using with yourself and the words you're using with others. So these are the things that do that. Or the behaviors, the actions, all of that, whether or not what we ingest, what we put in our bodies, what we put in our ears, what we see with our eyes, the choices we make are all powerful decisions. And everything that you absorb is part of it makes up who you are. And it ends up creating an internal environment that becomes your emotional resourcefulness. I understand on the financial side of that, measuring a client based on if your goal is more revenue based, that's important. But back to this idea that if you're considering the result, right? So the idea is, what result are you having? Some might say that's codependent. That's me being way too concerned about making others happy and all of those things. And I'm going to cross that off right now and help you handle that and move that into a different line item. That into a different even realm of thought. That is a much different conversation from really considering and paying attention to the result you're getting in others. So meeting with a gentleman the other day talking about some behaviors he had had for a long period of time with his sense of aggressiveness, his some of the habits and things that he had that just drove his wife crazy. And she was finally fed up and was like, I can't do this anymore. There was nothing. It was habit and behavioral, habitual. The priority certainly wasn't on the marriage. And it was a sense of being fed up. And he's now mad. He's now frustrated. He's now upset with her being angry a lot and all the time. Well, for however many years, she's been patient, tolerant, not angry, not, and just sitting back. And now he's agreed to make changes and she's finally able to express herself. And we were talking about owning the result. It might sound like a crazy connection to make to how you manage something in your marital relationship, in a close relationship with your partner, your spouse, where, and compare that to other places. But it moves laterally in a beautiful way, because if you're considering the result you're having and you think about who you want to be for her or him, it's much different from, when you were dating and looking for the right person and you make a list of all the character traits you want to see in someone else. I want to end up with someone who has all of these traits and all of these attributes. Well, that's very external. The recommendation that we have is always, and that I have always, is why don't you make a list of all of the things you want to be in a relationship based on who you are, how you're wired, and what your strengths are. And look for someone who will value and appreciate those traits in you. Now you're finding someone who desires to be with you, that honors and respects and admires and appreciates your ways of being and how you show up. You're not finding someone that fits the certain mold that then you have to adapt to. Now, again, like most things, those extremes of only doing one or the other isn't a complete package. It might be valuable to do a more comprehensive full list, but oftentimes you're not doing a most comprehensive and full check on things. You're taking life for granted and ending up places you don't want to be. And in your amazing greatness, it doesn't have to be that way. You can completely embrace, with a little extra effort and a little bit more mental focus and attention, and just a shift in how you think and what you access in your mentality, you can have an entirely different experience with the world. So for him, he was frustrated. He was being patient. He was being calm. He was getting ready for a long drive up to see their daughter, who was moving or going through a campus change or something else. And they were going to help her out. And they were going to have quite a long drive with each other, both going there and coming back over this long weekend. And we worked through for quite some time talking about how can you put down any challenge or opportunity with where, she might be in her frustrations and anger, and just own that you've created this for yourself and for her. Own that you've had that result and that you want to make a different result, and begin to define what result you would like to have, and start asking questions around what would help me, what behaviors could I do differently that would provide that result for you, that would have you feeling energized, uplifted, supported, loved, appreciated, all of the things that she's looking for. And maybe that isn't what she wants to feel. So helping yourself learn and helping her communicate what it is that she'd like to have from you. Why does that make such a lateral connection to all the other things? Well, in that you have a somewhat captive relationship, in that you're married. You've made a commitment to each other. Even if you're just partners, you didn't make the marital commitment. You have a commitment to be partners, and that has some sense of permanence to it. And if you're married, depending on your beliefs, that is permanent, right? That is permanence beyond this life. So if that gives you a playing field where you have two parties that want to engage and want to make it better, even when they're acting and behaving, if they're not. Well, in business, you have contracts and agreements. And people don't want to change and have to go through the process of finding someone else to fulfill a contract. And if they've been wooed and romanced by some other contractor that can do it better, cheaper, whatever, and you've dropped the ball and you haven't created the experience that they want, how do you then create that experience? Talking to a specialist the other day that were engaging in one of the same opportunities to help a company, and they were talking about how they were given a task within a company in the past where their entire job was to go into contracts that were up for renewal where the client was choosing to not renew. And every single time, what they found going in is that they felt like their concerns and what they were experiencing as the client was not being considered. And by simply sitting there on all of the engagements and saying, great, can you help us understand exactly where it wasn't going right for you? Explain what the response you got when you expressed that it wasn't working, and just go through the whole thing of digging deep into it because we need to fix it. If you go away and you're not with us, we'd have to accept that and understand that and that we created that. But we certainly want to correct that and not have that with other clients. So if you'd be so kind to help us through that. Well, very similar experience. So there's your lateral chunk. There's the move from one area to the next where basically taking on the aspect and thought of how are you in service to someone else is the winning game. Because if you're in service to someone else, you are considering what their experience is being with you. What are they gaining and how are they participating? Who in your life have you met that you think, man, everyone they know loves them? Everyone thinks they're amazing and everyone wants to say hello and talk to them. How in the world do they do it? Is there someone in your life you can imagine that is like, man, they just seem to be the best friends with everybody. And how do they do that? Well, that's somebody who has spent some time considering what it is that makes other people feel better after meeting with them. And that can be as simple as learning how to remember someone's name, giving people eye contact, remembering something personal about them and always asking them about it. There's key things of having that standpoint of being of service, noticing when they want to sit down that you make sure there's a chair available. All of these things, if you are in the mindset of how do I serve, what I've noticed in experience as well is that and I'm not always in that mode. I'd like to think I am, and I work towards that. But what I will tell you is that when I'm in a mode of service, I am much happier. I'm much more fulfilled. I'm enthusiastic. I'm seeing value in what's going on, and people are then appreciative. When I'm in the mode of sorting, because I walk into these modes where I'm sorting and just dealing with all the data points I have in my mind, considering all of the things that are happening in a situation. And for me, sometimes ideas are like fireworks, where all of a sudden there's an explosion above my head and every single glimmer of light is a possibility. And I'm like, woo. And that to me is exciting and fun. But if I go into the mode of sorting all of that out and starting to consider what the next best thing is, and I get into that ideation mode, I can then forget to tell my face that I'm happy and look like I'm in a different mode. And years ago, someone asked me if I was happy, if I was enjoying myself. I was on site at a job environment where I was doing an audit, going through an entire process at a location and just seeing how things were running and working. And everybody apparently was afraid of me. And I was asked if I was enjoying myself. And I perked up right away going, yeah, I'm having a blast. You guys have a lot of great things happening here, blah, 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 blah. And they stopped me and said, can we step aside? I said, sure. I said, you might want to inform your face that you're having a good time. And I was like, what? What do you mean? Well, people are kind of, they told me, people are afraid of you. You're walking around and they think that you're angry or grumpy or like there's something going on and that you're finding everything wrong. And all I was doing was having a focused concentration on my face and wanting to capture all the information that was good information, that was accolades and who we could say was doing a great job and why and what were all the things going well. And what an interesting conversation to have and an awareness to consider that just the look on my face was giving someone else an experience that wasn't even accurate to who or the mode I was in or who I was being. That is such a minute detail to consider to miss, to end up having, right? Notice that word. I ended up having a result with people that put them in fear, worry, concern, had them, they were not having a very good day. They thought that they were being criticized. So they started telling stories in their head. That was the result I was getting from others. Now, is it my responsibility that they were now in stories in their head of all the things that weren't working for them? No, that's their responsibility to manage that. But it doesn't change the result I was getting was different than what I wanted. And all I needed to do was smile and raise my eyebrows and learn how to do that for them to have a different experience and maybe even drop a few notes. Now, when you're doing some of those, you're trained to keep a straight face and not give up anything and let them have some form of worry because you don't want to let on what the result is because you're only doing a brief moment of time and it's not meant to give them any type of anticipation of results because you're just a cog in a wheel and fully understood. Then you know what result you're going for. You still don't want the fear and anger or worry side of it, the negative side of it. You'd much rather have the positive. And this is just an illustration anyway. So you're at mid-year. You're running into the year. You ran into the year. If you've been listening here and you've been engaging here, you were prepared to walk into this year. You were running right into it. You already had goals. You were already doing things that set you up for success for this year. By the time you hit February and March, you were already looking at the wins that you had that you wouldn't have had otherwise had you not done all that prep work. Had you stopped for the holidays and just relaxed and not done anything to move forward, you would have been starting back up in January. So you went into January running. You were already seeing results in February and March, and now you're at the mid-year point, a little bit past it. And it's time to start considering how you're going to finish the year. What can you add to the plate that will make it even better? What have you already nailed that you don't have to worry about anymore that you can move on with? What have you done that you could do again that would really drive another additional result? If you're halfway through the year and you're 1 out of 5 on your goals, is that because everything's still in the hopper and you just haven't quite, you're waiting on something to be signed? There's something else. You could have all 5 happen right tomorrow. It's not a time to be discouraged over what those goals are. Really look at what are the results of each month and where are we being. Get a true picture of where you're at in the year so you really can consider how you're going to close. Now, over the next few months, you're going to find that this show will focus on a couple of more touch points on that to help you prepare for how you're going to end the year. And the way to end anything is to already be starting the next. So utilize this and benchmark it and start looking at, make sure you listen and you pay attention and look for those shows. If you want to be put on a specific list to be targeted, let us know, leave a comment, or DM me or DM the show, and we'll make sure that you get on that list. This is the way to move forward and close this year strong, overexceed on all of your goals, reestablish goals. If you know that it's a shift and a change, sometimes unavoidable things happen that completely change a course. Some products become unavailable, some resources just completely change, and there's course alteration. Document what those course corrections have been. If you've made agreements throughout the year and there's been a change, document that reason for the change. We have an entire framework of working through projects and engagements and coaching agreements where you can see the human journey. It's like a zigzag where you can see when there's been a course correction. You can start to look at why, start to look at how the decision was made. You can start documenting that process so you can always go back and resource that and know. And then that ultimate goal doesn't have to be dropped. It just gets to be adjusted. And you find something to replace it, something new to fit in there. Because if one door closes, another one always opens. So time to go into the second half of the year with hope, with open eyes, with full awareness. Do a brief inventory of where you're at. Consider what's coming next. And in the show, we'll support you to do so. It's always a pleasure to be of service. It's an amazing gift to be able to have a voice and be a voice and exercise this and help that create a momentum for others. If have not jumped in, gotten some of your own assessments, go to our website and check it out. We've got some new products lined up that are really easy, simple ways for individuals to jump in. If you're looking to change a job, if you're in a role and you're looking to maximize your role and really make benefits, the designing strengths process can really be activated and utilized to get just about any of those things done. If you just are looking to redo your LinkedIn profile and re-engage that, just jump in and look at these things. We've got lots of new stuff coming. This was the month, this was the date that we were going to have a new name for the show. I backed off. I'm not ready. The right name's not here yet. And it's really because I saw someone else with a name that was more action oriented. And I thought, man, that sounded really great. So like the result you want with quantum strengths, or, that was like what it sounded like. And the name of the show was The Result You Want, but that wasn't the name. It was like that. It was, the happiness show, or it was like, man, that sounded exciting to me. So I'm course correcting myself and looking at a different name, and I'm all the ideas that have come, I'm still open to looking at more. We just haven't quite found that sweet spot of what we want to call this. So that'll happen here, I'm sure, over the next few weeks, because it's not completely lost. It's just redirected for a minute. And as always, it's a pleasure to be here. We will definitely see you next week. And until then.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of The Point with me, Jeff Spikes. Please visit jeffspikes.com for everything you would need to know to engage with me offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Point.